How's it going, everybody? I hope you're all having a good day. I will have a live game hunting video up soon, but in this video we're going to check out 4 imports, and they all happen to be Nintendo games this time. First up is for the Game Boy Advance. This is Pinkie and the Brain, the Master Plan. I love the Game Boy Advance. It's one of my favorite consoles of all time, and even have a show dedicated to it on this channel. I got this one in a trade with my buddy Samurai Sam. It's one that you don't hear talked about very often, so I wouldn't be surprised if many people don't even know that this game exists. Pinkie and the Brain were of course recurring characters on the Animaniacs TV show before getting their own spin-off, which ran from 1995 to 1998. I did play all the way through this and liked it quite a bit. There's a nice assortment of locations and gameplay styles, but in having over 20 levels it does begin to drag and wear out its welcome towards the end. It also has its fair share of parts that are absolutely rage-inducing. The controls in the game are tight, but the colors, art design, and animations are what really made this game for me. Pinkie and the Brain, the Master Plan was developed by Warthog, published by Swing, and released in 2002 exclusively for the Game Boy Advance. Despite Pinkie and the Brain appearing in other Animaniacs games, the Master Plan is only the second one to feature them. After Doofus and Rufus steal the Brain's master plan to take over the world by manipulating Earth's weather stations, Pinkie and the Brain set out to get it back. The Master Plan is primarily a side-scrolling platformer, however there are also side-scrolling shooter, rhythm, and puzzle-based levels. You control Pinkie or the Brain and can switch between the two at any time. Both will run, jump, shoot, and slide through 23 levels with 6 boss battles placed throughout. Besides collecting an array of items like a gun, pieces of the Master Plan, and extra lives and continues, you can trigger special abilities that make Pinkie super strong and allow the Brain to float higher than either of the two can jump. The game also offers 5 multiplayer stages that can be played with up to 4 friends via a link cable. Next up is Kunio-Kun World Classics Collection for the Switch. I also got this one in a trade. It is available digitally outside of Japan, but it currently costs $40 on the eShop. The Kunio games all share a very unique character design, and my favorite of the bunch is River City Ransom. I still find myself just randomly humming the theme song to that game. It's a nice collection if you're a fan of the series and everything looks great, but I tried to play this online multiple times and haven't ever found another person to play with. Kunio-Kun The World Classics Collection, or as it's called outside of Japan, Double Dragon and Kunio-Kun Retro Brawler Bundle, was released in 2018. It contains 18 games, 11 of which are Famicom titles and the other 7 are NES releases. The NES games are Renegade, Super Dodgeball, River City Ransom, Crash and the Boys Street Challenge, and Double Dragon 1, 2, and 3. The collection is not 18 unique games though, as the Kunio NES games and their Famicom counterparts have both been put in, but only the NES versions of the Double Dragon games are here. Nintendo World Cup is the lone Kunio game missing from the NES side of the compilation, however the Famicom version is included. All of the games can be played as they were originally intended, and 14 offer a quality up option. The quality up version has things like bug fixes and improved mechanics and game commands. All games have 4 save state slots, online play, and the collection as a whole offers 55 achievements to unlock. I love checking out 90s licensed games to find out which are good and which are awful. It's crazy to see how much money was thrown at Waterworld and its tie-ins when the results were so mediocre. Although this game is not perfect, the controls are tight and I enjoyed the platforming segments. The biggest issue here is the level timer, which is completely unnecessary in a game based around exploration, and it'll break the game for most people. I also played all the way through this one, and at 30 stages, it more than overstays its welcome. Waterworld was developed by Power & Magic, published by Ocean, and released in 1995 exclusively for the Game Boy. Different games for the movie were also released for the Super Nintendo, PC, and Virtual Boy, while 2 other games were cancelled at various stages of development for the Sega Genesis and Sega Saturn. Waterworld has 3 types of gameplay that span 7 levels and 30 stages: swimming, platforming, and sailing, with some stages combining the first 2. The point of the game is simple: just get to the end of the level or kill the boss before running out of time, dying, or getting trapped. In order to do so, you're going to need to collect as many bullets, hearts, stars, and clocks as you can to have any chance of making it through. And lastly, we have a Japanese exclusive Nintendo 64 game. The game is Bomberman 64, and I know what most people are already thinking, that Bomberman 64 was released worldwide, and you'd be correct. But that Bomberman game was called Baku Bomberman in Japan and probably just had the 64 slapped in the title because many other games at the time were doing it. Like the Super Nintendo, Japanese and North American N64 games can be played on either region's console, but due to the placement of 2 tabs inside of it, they won't physically fit. They're region-locked physically, not digitally. You can modify the console by removing the tabs, or you can just swap the backplates out, which we're doing here. So back to the name. After Bomberman 64 was released in 1997, we had Bomberman Hero in 1998 and Bomberman 64 The Second Attack in 2000. Well, in 2001, yet another Bomberman game was released in Japan, actually called Bomberman 64 this time, so now you're left with the conundrum of what to call it if it did come out worldwide. But luckily for the developers, it was released so late in the N64 life cycle that they never had to deal with it. Bomberman 64 was developed and published by Hudson Soft and released in 2001 exclusively in Japan for the Nintendo 64. Following Bomberman 64, Bomberman Hero, and Bomberman 64 The Second Attack, it is the fourth and final Bomberman game for the console. It is also the last Nintendo 64 game officially released in Japan. Bomberman 64 takes a 2D approach to the series, unlike the previous 3 Nintendo 64 games that went for full 3D gameplay. The game includes 4 different modes of play. The first is Classic Mode, which is the traditional Bomberman layout with various level tiers and multiple stage exits that create branching paths. A multiplayer mode is also available. The second game is Panic Bomber, which is a puzzle game set in the Bomberman universe. The third is a point-and-click game that has you trying to eliminate all the blocks on a board by removing them in groups of 2 or more. Lastly, there are multiple types of minigames located in Bomberman Park. So that's what I picked up and have been playing recently, along with starting Dark Souls. What have you been playing, listening to, watching, or reading? Again, I will have a live hunting video out soon. Stay safe and stay nerdy. I'm out.
Getting your nerd on, getting your nerd on, getting your nerd on.
I got a raging nerd on.